3 days have passed of something spectacular. Do you feel a bit tired, just like all of us, or how's your feeling?
In fact, I feel enthused by what the experience that we had. We had 3 very different verticals. They showed beautifully. They showed very consistently. Every single vintage was expressing something different. And I think that was the beauty of those 3 days. Obviously, it needs a lot of concentration on each vintage, on each appellation. But in the end, it was a real success.
Was this something unique, and will we repeat something like that again, or are those, let's say, the very last of the last bottles, so to speak? Was that something for you as part of the owner family? How unique was that for you?
Actually, these are the last verticals that we had, and therefore there are no equivalent verticals in our cellars anymore. So yes, in a way, these were the last of the last. So.
This is special. What really struck us and the guests, and I heard it on both nights actually, was the consistency of the wines. We're just one guest describing it as a line that goes through like a knife through butter, you know, through all the vintages. Maybe you want to comment on that, because that's actually quite special.
Yeah, I think it was consistent in the quality, but the vintages were expressing their differences. And that's what we are trying to do with wine. I mean, yes, in terms of quality, it was very consistent, so that's the good thing.
Yeah.
But I'm also expecting each vintage to say something about that period of time. You know, when you are in the 80s, you don't want to express the same thing as when you are in the 90s or when you are in the 2000s. And I think that through the consistency of quality, then the expressions of those vintages, the expression of also of the terroirs. We had yesterday Bâtard and Chevalier side by side.
Yeah.
So that was also very interesting to compare the two.
Now, maybe 1 or 2 lines about the process of let's say, you know, checking and renovating those bottles. Maybe you can explain it to our fans and viewers and clients, because this was real handcraft. This was a very tedious process.
Yeah.
What did you do exactly, in very simple words?
Well, in very simple terms, the intent was to make sure that all the bottles did not have a defect.
Yeah.
So that somehow you got a nice vertical. We were not trying to find the best bottles. We were not trying to find a consistent series, because it's too difficult anyway. And I wanted the wines to express themselves. But clearly what we did is that we tested each bottle with a Coravin. Then we opened every one of them, checked it a second time, made sure it was correct, changed the cork, and then recorked everything, and then waxed every single bottle.
And waxed it.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. One of the very nice experiences we have had in the last 3 days was the barbecue in your private garden. Thank you again. That was absolutely special and marvelous experience, I think also for our other winemakers. And your passion about garden. You're a gardener.
I'm a gardener, yeah.
Is that the parallel that you see in winemaking?
It's a parallel that I see in the viticulture, in reality, because in a way, every single flower is different, every single bunch is different. In the vineyard, it's the same.
So your wine is made in the garden?
In a way, yes. We treat every single vine in a very different way. They have very different needs, and we pay attention to the needs of every vine. With experience, you can do it relatively fast, like in the garden, you can do it relatively fast. But yes, the same concept. Every single vine, every single flower, every single bunch is treated differently depending on its needs.
Because often our winemakers that are of the same category, they tell me, you know, once the grapes are in the cellar, the wine is actually made. And,
well,
you know, would you agree with that notion of really the major percentage of all your creative work for the wine to be a great wine in the end of the year is made in the garden?
Very clearly, the wines are made in the garden, and you have to bring the grapes at their peak. They need to be harvested the day of their peak, and that's that's a little bit of work, but you've got to bring them at their absolute best, especially at Domaine Leflaive. I mean, you would be surprised to see how simple actually the winemaking is. But sometimes simplicity requires a little bit of thinking.
Yes.
And it's probably the case of
It's
at Domaine Leflaive. But what we want is to make sure that whatever we do keeps the grapes and the juice and then the wine to its absolute best, because in reality every intervention changes a little bit.
Yeah.
And you don't want that, and therefore that's why we make so much efforts in the viticulture, and we try to make less efforts in the winemaking. It's not less efforts. It's we try to be as simple as possible. The wines, you know, they need to develop, and you need to help them a little bit, very clearly. But they need to develop by themselves. We want the wine to express the place that they've been growing from. I think it's very important in our philosophy, in the Burgundian philosophy as well, obviously.
Yeah. Talking about timing, you just told me before we came together here something about those flowers, and I said I need to tell our friends and viewers that you need to repeat that, because now we're in the middle of the year. How's the year going, and how do you feel about 2021 so far?
21 is going to be a complicated year because we had a big frost at the beginning of April,
yes.
6, 7, 8 of April. And then we had some rather cold weather and a bit of rainy weather,
yes.
as you can see today.
Yeah.
And in reality, the year is going to be a late year. We don't know exactly when, but we know it's going to be a September harvest.
Okay.
And in a way, there is a known fact at the Domaine Leflaive is these are lists. LYS in French, and I don't know the English translation, but when they will bloom, that's where the 100 days count will start for the harvest. So we are the 6th of June, and they are not going to bloom before a good 10 days to 2 weeks.
So I think this is a beautiful expression of how timing here works and the connection to nature. I thought that was a nice notion. Thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure to spend those 3 days with you. Unfortunately, we won't be able to sell these hats.
No,
I have a lot of requests already about these hats. I will bring some to Lake Attersee, and also these, I don't know the English word actually, Fächer. But yeah, thank you for that. And it was great. And we'll be back very soon, Katerina and I, to discuss further, and
you're more than welcome at Domaine Leflaive
to enjoy Leflaive. Thank you, Brice.
Thank you.